Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Musical March.
Yes.
On It's a Wonderful Podcast. Thank you, Morgan, for reaffirming that. If you can't tell from the title, we're going to be talking about musicals this month. So if you don't like musicals, kindly fuck off and go find a soul, then come back.
Nolan, very, very, very aggressive. I feel like for the past 3 months on the show, the aggression has just been completely extreme. I'm not sure what to make of it, but yes, guys, it is Musical March, as Nolan alluded to. We are on our second week of Musical March, and it's a very special episode, Nolan. It's a very special episode. Yes, really. Don't say it in that cynical tone.
I'm not cynical. You're more cynical than I am.
That's probably true, but I can't be cynical about our guest. And yes,
Fair enough.
Guest this week on the second, might as well say it now, on the second, third and fifth episodes of Musical March. She will be joining us because she's the queen of musicals, and it would have been a travesty to not have her on multiple times this month. Rachel Silvestrini, hello.
Hello, boys. How are you?
I am wonderful.
Oh, I'm doing okay. Glasgow's still freezing.
I mean,
I'm excited to talk about this movie.
me too. It's one of my favorites. I mean, Gene Kelly.
Gene Kelly.
He is a very sexy man.
He's dreamy.
Is this me just going to be sat here while you two just get very hot and bothered about Gene Kelly?
Yep, thank you, Mr. Straight White Male.
I mean, even as a straight white male, you can still gush over how wonderful of an actor and dancer and singer he is.
Oh, look,
and I hate the phrase "no homo," but I mean, you can. It's fine.
He's a horrendously talented person. It's kind of upsetting how talented he is, considering he is kind of the perfect triple threat of acting, singing, and dancing. I do think he excels in dancing, and there's no more movie of his that I've seen or that I'm aware of that showcases his dancing talents quite like Singin' in the Rain, which is our episode this week. 1952, directed by Gene Kelly and Stanley Donen as a duo little weird partnership thing. Although I think it was Kelly that did all the sort of dancing musical numbers, and then Donen that did the actual, filmed scenes, talking normal stuff. But they make a great partnership. I have not seen this movie in a couple of years. And I had forgotten how kind of tight it is. It's very
tightly paced.
It really is. It doesn't sort of meander about like for 2 hours 40 minutes like a lot of musicals do.
Bravo.
Even though some are great. Some are great. And Rachel's face.
Dare
right
you
now.
meander about?
I don't mean
okay. First of all, Gene Kelly is a gift.
Please roast him, Rachel.
Secondly, I don't think that you can say that this is the best embodiment of Gene Kelly's talent. I think that this is very evenly keeled with An American in Paris. And yes, I am a little biased because I toured with them for 2 years.
Okay.
Damn, that's awesome.
I sold merchandise. I don't dance ballet. It's fine. But it was like, that movie was beautiful. And if you go back and watch it, yes, it does meander a little bit, but it meanders in a way that is acceptable for a musical.
Oh yeah,
whereas
I don't think
this was very tightly paced. It was very, it had a vision, and it went after it.
Yeah, I don't necessarily use the word meander about in a very negative way. I kind of like it when musicals take the time to do like a massive 10-minute number in the middle of it and stuff like that. Because
you'd love Bollywood musicals then.
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the whole sort of spectacle of the musical. Musicals is the most spectacle of genres, and they just work in that way. That it is kind of unusual to get one that's sort of this short and this sort of sharp. But it really is great because it is kind of like iconic musical number after iconic musical number, like bang, 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 bang. I'm not sure I could possibly pick a single favourite musical number in this movie. If either of you two have any thoughts on that.
I really love Make 'Em Laugh.
Yes.
I mean, it's definitely up there. I do have a nice soft spot for Good Morning.
Good Morning might be my favorite.
To you.
I mean, I like Debbie. Debbie Reynolds.
It's all Debbie Reynolds.
I mean, I actually haven't watched this movie since she died.
Okay.
It was very hard emotionally for me when she passed because she was so iconic in the musical world, and I grew up with her. So when I watched this again, it was kind of cathartic. But Debbie Reynolds is such a bright ray of sunshine for this movie because everybody in this movie is just so dark and jaded and cynical about LA and Hollywood, and she comes in and she's sassy and she knows what she wants and she's beautiful, and Good Morning is actually something that could happen when you get musically inclined people together at 3:00 in the morning. Like,
having been a musical theater kid, I can confirm that.
Yeah. Our life's our fame. That's what it is. Musical numbers just happen.
Yeah, when I played Danny Zuko, there was impromptu musical numbers every chance we got.
Yep, usually at diners.
I mean, admittedly, I do have some stage experience as a child. As quite a young child, never did I get to sing any sort of solo, or I did a little bit of dancing, a little bit of ensemble singing and that sort of stuff. Not to the level of you two, as it would seem.
I don't perform.
I only did like 1 or 2 shows. I was Tony in West Side Story and Danny Zuko in Grace.
Oh, I only did the leads in 2 of the biggest musicals. It's fine, don't worry. Humble brag.
And they were small.
Shut up.
They were smaller productions, but I was like really young at the time. I can't do it anymore because I've been smoking too much and my voice is shot to shit.
Yeah, I understand that.
No more singing for Nolan. We will not be getting any singing this month out of Nolan. As much as I would quite like that, but
no. But I did actually discover Singing in the Rain mostly because it's the reason I picked this. In case my dear old aunt is listening, my Aunt Reba, this is her favorite movie of all time. She's been trying to convince me to watch it for years, but Rachel might hate me for this, but my first real exposure to Singing in the Rain was when they combined it with Rihanna's Umbrella on an episode of Glee.
I'm not going to say I hate it. However, I will say that Glee did an amazing service to the theatrical and musical world by bringing those moments, and it was like Glee was basically a musical every week that was shown around the world and brought people into musicals.
Made musical theater cool again, I think.
Well,
for a while.
It was always cool. We just needed the rest of the world to wake up. And actually...
For about 3 seasons, and then the last 3 seasons sucked.
Oh, my friend worked on the last 5.
Oh, see, you never know who you're going to insult on It's a Wonderful Podcast.
I do know everyone.
You do know it. You do. That is a known fact, Rachel. Rachel does know everyone. I almost want to get into a bit of a conversation about your sort of background growing up with musicals, because you are such a huge lover of them. You have toured with the stage productions of a few different musicals. So where's your love of them come from?
Oddly enough, my dad.
Okay.
My dad was very much a man's man. He He looked like Stallone, but was 6'2" instead of 5'6". So he was very large and intimidating, and all of my guy friends called him Sly. It was amazing. But he raised me on
Was he a boxer?
I'm sorry?
Was he a boxer?
No, he was a weightlifter. He was a bodybuilder. I mean, he did get 3 girls, but taught me how to box, so that was fun. He really wanted a boy.
I understand now why I'm afraid of you.
No, no, not fear. Healthy respect of love. It's fine.
Healthy respect and love. That is very, very true.
But yeah, he raised me on a steady diet of spaghetti westerns and musicals. He actually played. He was the lead dancer in the dream sequence in Oklahoma when he was in high school.
Okay.
And so. Yeah, he was the one who gave me my first cast recording on cassette. Yes, I am old.
Nice.
I was 5 years old running around the house singing Dance 10 Looks 3 from Chorus Line, which should not shock my family the way that I turned out. So I went to my first musical when I was 8. It was a Chorus Line, and I've seen so many musicals since then. I toured with the United States National Tour of Beauty and the Beast for 5 years. And I worked I sold merchandise for every Disney theatrical show on Broadway and on tour for those 5 years. And then after that, I worked the 2 years on An American in Paris. And that show was perfect.
Beauty and the Beast was the one role that I missed, admittedly, when I was doing musical theatre. I auditioned for Gaston and didn't get the part.
I think I could play the Beast.
Yeah, I mean, you guys have a lot in common.
Perhaps even I could pull off Belle.
I would love to. Oh, you would be a fantastic Cogsworth.
Exactly. That's exactly who I am, isn't it?
Oh my god.
I can't see you as Belle because you hate reading.
That's a lie, actually. That's a blatant lie. I disregard that statement in its entirety. I have many, many books. As you well know, you liar.
Gathering dust in the corner.
Not gathering dust. I read sometimes a little bit. But no, Rachel, honestly, that is fascinating. And clearly that's where your love of An American in Paris comes from. And, where you might consider, in terms of Gene Kelly, that to be the sort of... Whether it's superior or whether it's your, favourite.
I find them very different. American in Paris is very much a ballet. Like, the show and the movie are very much a dreamlike ballet, slow and beautiful and, measured dance sequences. Whereas Singin' in the Rain is very much a Hollywood and New York Broadway version of a musical. I mean, Gotta Dance is...
Yeah.
That's Broadway. Like, that was what Broadway was and still is, but at the time, that's what was used to bring musicals to the masses. Like, there's so many people now that go to New York for Broadway musicals like once a year from all over the United States and all over the world, whereas back in the 50s, that wasn't the case. Like, there weren't airplanes that, would take you directly from LA to New York. It was very much like a week's worth of travel to get to New York. And even then, the musicals that were on Broadway were more vaudevillian than they were what we consider Broadway. And so I think this musical brought that aspect and brought a change to the Broadway musicals that I don't think any other show before that had done.
Yeah, I mean, that is... I love... This is exactly why I wanted to have you on, because you bring such insight that I don't have any idea from, having just, I'm coming, watching these musicals as the movies they are. Some I've seen before, some I haven't seen before. And, I tend to enjoy them. I certainly do enjoy Singin' in the Rain for its sort of, not only its story, that is very Hollywood centric. I like its setting. I think is perfect of the turn of talkies and in the late 20s, and the struggles that Hollywood went through at that time, and to put that obviously into a musical then, the height of sound in a production is just kind of really smart to do. But I don't have the insight that you have into this world, and I love it so much. I love listening to you. I was just sort of mesmerized right then. I was just happy listening. Nobody else has to speak.
It's one of my favorite things to talk about. And actually, so who said that Make 'Em Laugh was their favorite?
That was me.
That was you? Did you know that Gene Kelly wanted that to be a one-shot number?
Oh, that would have been so cool.
They tried for 16 hours, and he did it full out for 16 hours because as wonderful as Gene Kelly is, he was very much a taskmaster.
I have heard that.
He would, if a dance number wasn't done completely right, he would make you start from the very beginning until it was perfect and film it every time. He wouldn't settle and just be like, oh, well, we'll just edit it and take the ending from this shot and put it on the end of this one because you did great for the first 2/3 of it and the last third is this shot. No, he wanted everything to be perfect, which is why all of his movies since then have been you get the best of the talent because they're he's gonna push me. He's going to make me better than I ever will be. And a lot of people ended up walking out of his filmings or the recording process bitter and angry with him because he was such a taskmaster. But when you look at the end product, it's so beautiful that you're like, okay, I get it. This is why you have to be the way you are, because you had this vision and you got it. And now it's beautiful.
Do you think that's, that comes with having so much talent himself and having put so much time into perfecting his own dancing?
Absolutely.
And performing. He just sort of needs everyone else to work on the same level as him to make his, his vision come alive, as you say.
Absolutely. He was one of the most focused and talented human beings I think in history, and when you are that way, you have you seek perfection, and the drive to get that out of the people around you is so intense because this vision that you have is so strong that I've talked to people who have owned they're billion-dollar CEOs, and they're the same way. They're very much I have this thing that I want to do and I have to get it done. It's not even a choice. It's if I don't do this, I might die. And it sounds extreme, but if you've ever met somebody who's in theater, they're a little dramatic.
Well, I don't think that's unusual, is it?
Well, you'd think of dance sequences in theatre they're technically one-shots. If you're performing something on stage, you can't screw up with it. They practiced to that level of extent. So seeing him bring that passion over from theatre into this, that's pretty inspiring.
Yeah, any movie that he is in, if you watch the background dancers, you can tell how long they've been going and which take it was by how fierce they're just I just need to hit this pirouette. I just need to hit this fouette. I just need to nail this dance. Let's get the hell out of here. I'm hungry. You can see it in their eyes.
I might have to watch some more. I might have to watch this again and just look at look at some of the background people that are just kind of terrified of what Gene might say next.
Oh.
Downing bottles of scotch.
Don't get it wrong.
In the background.
Don't get it wrong. Don't get it wrong. Please don't get it wrong. I can imagine the fights that ensued from little tiny background dancer cast members that were just God damn it, you got it wrong. Now we all have to do it again.
Damn it, Kevin, it's on 5, not 3. 5! Yeah.
Oh, no.
So that reminds me of that guy from Whiplash.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the same mentality. and some people call it insanity. Some people think that it's too intense, but those people don't understand. Like, I am a highly competitive person. And so when I compete to win. And when I don't, it upsets me. And when I compete with people who aren't
remind
as
me
passionate
never to
as
get
I
on your
am,
bad side.
it affects things.
No, yeah, it makes complete sense. I think this is why everyone has so much respect for Gene Kelly, even though they might sort of consider him, like you say, a taskmaster, like a really hard taskmaster. But it's why you can't have nothing but respect for him, because of the end product that he produces is just so pristine and so sort of perfect. And I know the actual Singing in the Rain sequence, the big whole famous thing, although it looks very sort of improvised, was like one of the longest. It took one of the longest amount of time to actually film on the entire shoot, just because Gene wanted it that perfect. And of course he was the sole performer in that whole dance number. But if maybe the lighting cue was off, or the camera was slightly a second too slow, I'm sure Gene would have done the whole thing all over again. And
he's the Kubrick of musical theatre.
He's the Stanley Kubrick of musicals. I think that's a fair thing to say, actually.
Except Gene Kelly's a bit more handsome than Stanley Kubrick.
Oh,
just a little bit.
Touch.
Probably less of a dick.
I don't know about that, but
well, you don't know.
I don't know. I've heard some horror stories about Kubrick.
Oh no, no.
Speaking of Kubrick and Gene Kelly, I do know that Gene Kelly was not too pleased with the Singing in the Rain in A Clockwork Orange.
He hated it.
Yeah, I read somewhere that Malcolm McDowell met Gene Kelly at, it might have even been, like a screening of A Clockwork Orange or an award show or something, and Gene just sort of, almost dismissed him because he was that disgusted at what they'd done with his song.
Yeah, well, for an entire generation...
Makes sense.
For an entire generation, that song was whimsical and sweet and wonderful, and then Clockwork Orange comes along and just fucking
which is
does
anything
smashes
but whimsical.
Yeah, it does that to it. And for the next generation, that's what Singing in the Rain is to those people.
Yeah, so...
Genius move from Kubrick, if you ask me, but one that definitely annoyed Gene Kelly. Genius,
but dick.
Yeah, that's Stanley Kubrick, though.
That's true.
That is just Stanley Kubrick in a nutshell. Okay, let's talk about some of our sort of favourite scenes of this movie. Not necessarily the numbers themselves, but Rachel, your face just lit up again. What are some of your
just lists out
highlights?
The entire synopsis?
Probably.
How do I begin? Honestly, I think my favorite scene is when Gene jumps into the car with Debbie. That very first meet cute that they have, and she's like, "What the hell are you doing?" She's just like pissed off and like giving it to him, and she's just angry and like, "How dare you? Like, get out of my car!" And he thinks that he's
that's just a general response, though, isn't it?
Well, usually, yeah, but he's like, he kind of has this. It's like the sweetest version of "Don't you know who I am?"
Yeah, he's also the biggest movie star in the world at this point.
Yeah, but he's
Don Lockwood.
Be like if Timothy Chalamet jumped in my car.
That's a different story.
You would keep Timothy Chalamet in that car. Speaking of kidnapping, that's precisely what you would do.
That would turn into Black Snake Moan so quickly. Like, whoa.
Oh, Nolan really likes triangles.
I just really love that whole, and even when she does realize who he is, she doesn't fawn over him. Like, she's such a strong female character that she's like, oh my god, I'm sorry, get out of my car.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're well known. Still, remove yourself, please.
Please depart. But yeah, I love that scene. I think that scene sets up her to be an autonomous character who stands on her own feet that doesn't exist in a lot of movies, even today. Like, she is her own person. She is her own character. She doesn't rely on him. She doesn't swoon. Like, she is a complete character all on her own. And I love that introduction of her.
Yeah, that is a very fair point as well. Because even, we see her. I mean, yeah, I suppose it's it's not a side story really, but it's her career rise basically as is it Lena? Is it Lena's backing? Not backing singer, but sort of fake voice. Which it's her. It's her way into the world of Hollywood. It's her first foot in the door. Ultimately, by the end of the movie, she turns out to be the actual big star, and everyone carries on as they were, and it's all very nice. But it's she does have her own solo arc, really, in that sense. Obviously she gets help from everyone, and obviously there's the romance between her and Gene Kelly, but it is definitely not sort of, she's not the romantic lead to Gene Kelly's lead. She is one of the three leads.
Well, she's not a fangirl.
No, not at all.
And that's why I love her so much.
I think Donald O'Connor is a fanboy, though, in this movie. He loves everyone.
Yeah, I mean, he is just a bottle of love. He's wonderful.
He might have the most energy of any human being I've ever seen. Just in terms of what he's doing. You talk about make him laugh before Nolan. The amount of energy the man shows is extreme.
That's probably why that was my favorite musical number in the whole thing. I like seeing that kind of sort of raw passion and just sort of gleefulness. Like, it's just cheerful. Yeah. And kind of puts you in that nice place.
Pure.
It really is.
Yeah, that's a good word.
I also think he's the most comedic of... he's sort of the comic relief of the whole movie.
He's the sidekick best friend.
He is. Which always happens to be the funniest sort of character. He also shines in Moses Supposes, which is such a difficult thing to say.
That whole scene, like, I would have loved to have been on site for that, just to film that number, because it was so complex and so wonderful, and just, they're so, like, they are ultimate professionals in order to pull off that scene.
But that is also, like, arguably the funniest scene in the whole thing. The way they just sort of take completely over, and the elocution. I can't even say the word elocution right. How good am I at pronouncing things? The elocution teacher is just getting bombarded, and then they end up throwing a load of stuff on him and kind of annoying him. But it's also really funny and just really, really charming to watch. It leaves you with that huge smile on your face. And once, you then want yourself to try and say Moses supposes his toes are roses, which is a really difficult thing to say whilst singing and going on like that, especially if you want to try and roll your R's. Now, I don't know if anyone can roll their R's quite like that.
Don't look at me.
Nolan, do you not want to try and sing Moses Supposes right now for us?
Moses supposes his toes are roses.
There you go. He turned Australian then for a minute.
That's my singing voice. It takes on a different
singing
accent.
Voice. Right. Scrap all future discussion. Let's talk about why Nolan's singing voice is an Australian accent. Please explain.
I would just like to hear Danny Zuko with an Australian accent when Sandy is supposed to be the Australian. Can we just talk about that for
Some
a second?
11 had me a blessed.
Oh, no. Nolan, why did you turn Australian?
I don't know. It's just it's something that when I do performing, I always put on a different voice, and it can go from either like really British schoolboy or Australian.
So Lord of the Flies.
I don't know why.
Lord of.
Oh no, not like
Hello.
dickhead British schoolboy, like charming British schoolboy.
So. Okay.
I need to see your acting reel right now. Like, I need that in my life.
It's just a host of many different songs in many different accents.
Basically, just imagine how Daniel Radcliffe sounds in interviews. That's like my English accent.
Okay.
I do find that though. A lot of people when they're singing they don't sing in their own accent. Especially if they've got a really thick accent. Like, I don't sing in this. Imagine if I sang in this accent. Would it work? No.
If you were singing an Oasis song.
If I was singing... Okay. I'll give you that one. You think it would work, Rachel, if I started singing in this accent rather than a slightly more pronounced, more
I mean, it depends on the
understandable?
song. Like, it wouldn't work if you sang, like, Let the Bodies Hit the Floor by Drowning Pool. But...
I have no input.
Although now I really, really want a Celtic version of that song with you singing it.
I don't know. I don't know that song. You'll have to... I don't know.
Oh,
I know that song, and it would be hilarious in a Manchester accent.
Okay. I'll take your word
it'll
for
be
it.
amazing. Wait, so what are you guys' favorite scenes?
For me, it's kind of another thing, which is also reminds me of the whole Stanley Kubrick was a really crazy director. It's when they're first trying out talkies, and Lena, who I think is probably the closest thing this movie has to a villain.
Oh, she's a villain.
She reminds me of Jennifer Tilly for some weird reason. Her voice.
I get that, but she is definitely the villain of this whole thing. She's everything Debbie Reynolds isn't.
Yeah.
She is entitled regardless of her talent.
That scene where she's just like trying to talk into the microphone and just complete screws it up. It's hilarious in a really absurd way.
All I can think of when I think of her is I can't stand it.
Yeah. Oh my god.
And it just that voice.
When they
it's Jennifer Tilly's voice.
It's pretty close. I mean, I love Jennifer Tilly and she's fantastic, but like that voice, like that accent and that
it's the pitch.
Octave.
It's the pitch of the voice.
If there was Batman in that time, she would have played Harley.
Absolutely.
I mean, what I love most about that whole situation is when they're actually playing the movie, The Dueling Cavalier, on in that screening, and her accent goes from being taught the sort of, oh yeah, I remember I did elocution lessons. I've got to say, can't stand it. It's like
Can't stand it.
it's like, and everybody's just like, it's very.
It's the
very
director's
funny.
reaction that makes me laugh the most.
He's getting so angry about it. Now listen, just talk to the bush.
I cannot make love to
wire.
a bush.
There is a microphone in the bush. The wire is connected to the microphone, which runs here. See, I'm holding the wire. It then goes into that room where there is a man with a record, and it will record onto the record. Now just talk to the bush. Thanks, Roscoe.
I think in that whole scene when they're trying to get her vocals recorded, if you look at the wardrobe woman who keeps having to re-sew the flowers on her dress with the mic in them, she is so angry. Like, every time she walks up to Lita, she's like, I want to stab this fucking girl. Like, can't just talk to the bush. She's so angry, and it makes me so happy because I'm like, I know that wardrobe girl. Like,
Yeah.
I've worked with that wardrobe girl.
And yeah, I mean, for as funny as that sort of scene is, and them struggling to cope with the need for talking pictures, it's actually it's the most interesting stuff in there, because that sort of stuff actually happened, and these people were just getting really angry, not knowing how to do it. They saw Warner Brothers do it with the jazz singer, and no real respect goes to the jazz singer apart from the fact it was the first talkie because of what that was all about. But they saw Warner Brothers do that, and they didn't. The rest of the studios did. They were just like, how do we do that? And they're just getting annoyed. And this is a perfect representation of that time in Hollywood where everybody's just trying to catch up, trying to outdo each other, and trying to adapt to this new technology. And it's the same for the actors themselves. Another reason all those critics and people at that screening are laughing is because of the horrendous overacting that doesn't need to happen anymore now that we have sound.
It reminded me a lot of how in some musicals and in some like Disney movies and stuff, they'll have different actors for the singing voices.
Yeah, Disney does that a lot, but I mean, with
Disney does a lot of things I don't like, though.
Let's say what?
They do a lot of things I don't like, but that's one of them.
That's another discussion for another day.
This is not a Disney movie.
No, although when you do those, but I think in that scene when they're trying to figure out the recording and everything, I think it's the perfect representation when the studio president walks in and trips over the cord and just like pulls Lita off her seat and just literally pulls the whole thing to a standstill. I think it's like a perfect representation of what can happen when people in charge who don't know what they're doing try to come in and see how things are doing. It's like, go away. Just let me do this. Let me figure this out. If something's failing, I'll come to you, but stay out of my studio.
That is a good point.
The producers.
Yeah.
Although
coming in with their cigars.
I do kind of like him as a character, though.
I do. I really do, because he's not because typically he would be the villain.
Yeah.
Like the studio producer, like sitting in his office with like his stacks of cash, like twirling his mustache. Like that's usually the producer that you get. And this guy was kind of a straight shooter. And Lita was the one who would come in and be like, I can sue.
Yeah.
She's such a diva. It really annoys me.
But you still kind of like her. Like,
you do.
She's just so cartoonish and so ridiculous that you're like, oh, silly.
I like her in the same way that I'd like Ursula or Maleficent, like those sort of gleeful villains.
First of all, Maleficent and Ursula are not villains. Again, Disney talk for another time.
That's an interesting point to just bring up without elaborating, though.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I understand.
Are we leaving it there? Let's leave it there. Let's leave that point there.
I get what you're meaning. Just gleeful villains are kind of more fun to watch.
Well, the villains tend to be the characters that are more developed. Like, you understand them. They are usually the ones that you get the backstory from and figure out why they're so evil. Like, with Lita, it's just like her whole world is changing. She doesn't know what she's going to do. And then she talks to her lawyer and she's like, wait a minute. I can own this place. Like this guy who, and to be fair, she is quite delusional, thinking that she and
Don.
What was the character's name? My
Don.
brain just farted.
Don Lockwood.
Don. She and Don are like actually together and like in love. And so when this new girl comes in, who's no one to her, her whole world is being ripped apart. Like, she can't talk, she can't sing, she can't act. Like, what is she gonna do? Her man doesn't love her. He's leaving her for some girl. Like, she's just losing everything. And so she's like, I can own the studio. It's fine.
She's the biggest name in Hollywood at that point. And, in this world. And she walks over the studio head right up until, of course, the last very satisfying scene where...
I felt like cheering at that moment.
Well, it's a very,
Oh,
it's,
yeah.
it's exactly that. It warrants that sort of response. But I just like how he is in on it with Don Lockwood and I forget. Do you know what? Cosmo, Donald O'Connor's character. How the three of them are the ones that just say, no, we're sick of Lita now, and pull down the curtain, pull down the curtain, pull down the curtain. And
The looks on their faces when they all are standing there listening to Debbie Reynolds sing, the song, and then they're just like standing there smiling. They like walk all over to the ropes, and they're just pulling it. They're so happy.
It is a very
like
happy movie,
scene.
though. It is an outrageously happy movie. There's not a little bit of sadness in this. There is absolutely no reason throughout its whole 1 hour 40 minute where you are not beaming with just pure entertainment or joy or just satisfaction of story. The dancing is great, the singing is great from everyone, and yeah.
Can I just point out, one of my favorite musical actresses is in this movie, and given like this big of a part, and it is Rita Moreno.
Rita Moreno's in this movie?
As Zelda. Yeah, she plays Zelda.
Oh my god, I had...
Right? So she has like two scenes when, like, at the very beginning when they're all getting out of, like, at the very beginning when they're going to one of the premieres before they get talkies, and Zelda gets out of the car, and first of all, the woman who's introducing everybody over the radio...
Oh, she's the best. I love her.
...is epic.
She is the single... Oh, look who it is now. Oh, no, it's not.
Yeah. Or just like,
move on.
This is her new husband, and they look so happy, and they get out of the car, and he's like, can we go home yet? Like,
after 2 months of marriage, they still look like newlyweds.
It's like the announcer at the end of Shrek 2. There's your reference for the day.
It is like the announcer out of, it's very, very similar. Shrek 2, there's your reference. Thanks, Nola. Thanks for that.
Found it.
No, but yeah, she is great. What a way to open that movie. It is kind of showing the sort of fakeness within Hollywood, especially at that time, where the masses...
Which you cannot get away with nowadays.
No,
like,
you can't.
Don telling the story of him and Cosmo, and like how they went to this observatory, and like how they, played the biggest shows and everything. Like, one Google search nowadays is like, actually
no.
You were in Greenville, South Carolina. Like, don't lie. Like, you weren't in Manhattan.
Yeah, which is
you
why
were in Manhattan, Kansas.
I think that whole montage is perfect. It really is such a technically brilliant sort of montage in terms of the filmmaking itself, and yeah, the real stark contrast between what Don is actually saying and what's being shown is, again, it shows this sort of fabricated idealism of what Hollywood was like, what the people living there were like, where the masses had no idea. And now, of course, we do.
And we know everything.
We know
about
far too much about
everyone.
some people. That's a very big sigh from Rachel there.
Well, Hollywood isn't as glamorous as it used to be anymore, and I appreciate it, and it kind of hurts my soul a little bit too, because there's nothing that I love more than the golden age of Hollywood. Like,
you're talking my language. That's why we do this show.
Yeah, the women came out in pearls and heels and dresses. Their hair was always done. Men wore suits everywhere. Like, everyone was beautiful all the time in like the classiest of ways. And it's like, can we go back to that? Just that portion of the past. Like, you can take your bigotry and your sexism and take it away. Just give me everybody classy again.
Now it's like they see them on the awards ceremony, it's like, oh, here's her homophobic tweets from 10 years ago.
Exactly. Or from 10 minutes ago.
I mean, would you... I don't know. Would you like... Is what you're saying, would you like people living... Okay, so the world is as it is now, but Hollywood itself is like that? Or we just all go back to then, but without all the negative stuff?
I want to go back to them without the negative stuff.
That's fair enough. That's fair enough.
I want to Pleasantville my life.
Yeah.
But like the end of it, when everybody's in color.
Yeah, but
getting along.
The nice end of Pleasantville when.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I want that part. I want to wear poodle skirts. Like, just give it to me.
It's a perfectly solid dream. I can admit to also wanting that, especially from Hollywood. That's why, like I said, I love doing this show, is because we get to look back at all the wonderful movies in the past, a good many from the golden age of Hollywood. There is something very captivating about that time in entertainment history, compared to more recently. You can't imagine seeing, any negative press about the likes of Cary Grant or Jimmy Stewart or people like that. Like imagine if Jimmy Stewart had Twitter and 5 years ago he maybe said something that was a little bit offensive to somebody else.
Oh, it would break my heart. Although I did have a friend that you and I both know that I will not out on this podcast because I love her. She didn't know who Cary Grant was. I
mean, it's not okay. That's unfortunate.
And it hurt. That hurt, and
that hurts me too. Mutual friend who shall not be named, who I'm not quite sure who Rachel's talking about, but apparently I know her as well.
Well, her husband and I both literally grasped our pearls and gasped.
Okay.
And then we vowed to do. She apparently had never seen North by Northwest.
Yeah.
Or Charade, so we are planning an old school movie. I was like, great, we're gonna do a Cary Grant night with some martinis.
You gotta do the comedies as well. You gotta do the Bringing Up Babies, the His Girl Fridays of the world.
Do you like your martinis shaken or stirred?
Shaken.
And
extra dirty.
I don't like martinis. Just
vodka martinis, not gin. I can't do gin. Gin tastes like pine sol.
I can't do either of them. Vodka tastes like ass.
Well, that's why you make it extra dirty with the olive juice.
See, Rachel's got her ways.
Or I'll just drink the scotch on the rocks.
Well, yes.
Understandable.
But that's for like the Maltese Falcon. Maltese Falcon denotes Scotch on the rocks.
That is true. The Maltese Falcon is a very Scotch on the rocks movie.
Yeah.
Is that how we can rate movies now? What drink to pair them with?
What drink
Absolutely.
would you pair
with... I will start that podcast.
What drink? That's a good idea. I like that idea.
Oh my god.
Rachel.
I'm all for it.
We'll talk about it.
Yeah.
What drink would you pair with Singing in the Rain, then? If we're going that route.
It'd have to... Probably like a pina colada or something, because it's really sweet and pure and refreshing.
I don't know about that sweet. I might go... So, California Adventure has the most amazing bar inside of it. And
this is Disney's California Adventure.
Disney's California Adventure. And they actually... The bar is modeled after Carthay Circle, the Carthay Theater, which is where Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs premiered.
Okay.
So you can go in. It's the only place in the park to really get like a boozy drink, but like these are like cocktails. They're not drinks.
Mm-hmm.
And they have this triple pear martini that is so good. I would slap my mother for. And my mom took offense.
Apologies to Rachel's mother if she's listening to this podcast.
Oh, no. My mom took offense when I told her this. And then I took her to the bar and I bought her a martini and she was like, I'd slap you too. This is fine. I'm like, it's a perfect drink. It's very light and refreshing. It's sweet but not cloying. It's, I think that or like a gin fizz or like a champagne cocktail. That would be the perfect drink for this movie.
We have
Something a little
found
light
Rachel's
and
calling
bubbly.
in life. We have found Rachel's calling in life, a podcast matching drinks with movies. She's so happy about this. I love
This
it
makes me
so much.
very happy.
I would
Guys,
listen to that podcast.
Drinking in old movies.
There you have it then, guys. That's the drink of Singing in the Rain. Please all watch Singing in the Rain whilst drinking. Whilst going, you have to go to Disney's California Adventure, buy that drink, take it home. If you can, if you can even take it out the park, who knows what Disney's rules are about that sort of stuff. You can't.
I mean, a champagne cocktail. Go with that.
Go with a champagne cocktail then, and make one of those at home. Watch Singing in the Rain, and all is good with the world. Anything else we want to say about Singing in the Rain at all? About it sort of. I did want to bring up the actually forgot to do this. I did want to bring up the scene where the demonstration of the talking picture, who has my favourite character in the whole film in it, which is the guy doing the demonstration of the talking picture. Not only
the first TED Talk.
Not only for his mustache. I may, if I can get a name of that actor, put him in the Hall of Fame. I don't know the man's name, so we'll have to come back to that maybe next week, and he can be an inductee, because, I'm sorry, the man's mustache, Nolan, the man's mustache is pristine.
I will give you that.
His voice is also pristine, and I love it saying, there's a guy behind that screen talking, stop talking, guy behind that screen. It's like, no, there's no guy there. This is a demonstration of a talking picture. Look at my lips, I am talking. The sound is being recorded, and I am talking. The amount of times he says I am talking in the space of a minute and a half is impressive.
I love how when you said that, you sounded like a Doctor Who villain.
Which I didn't sound like a Dalek though, did it? Imagine a Dalek doing.
No, not a Dalek.
No, you sounded like maybe Davros or something like that.
I don't know enough about Doctor Who. Please shoot me in the face. I know a little bit about Doctor Who. Don't presume just because of my nationality that I'm supposed to know everything about Doctor Who.
Wait, I thought that was a requirement for you guys.
That's racist.
I mean, I run a Doctor Who show with one of our other friends, so I'm safe.
Fair.
You're always safe. You're the biggest Doctor Who fan possible. I mean,
do you have a tattoo in Circle Gallifreyan? Because I do.
No, because my mom won't let me get tattoos.
Again, here's Rachel's competitiveness coming out now, again.
Just saying.
He's just like, are you better than me? No, you're not. No, you're not better than me. I'm better than you.
I'm a bigger fan.
I have a tattoo.
Yeah, no, I know. I hate that about myself. It's fine.
There is something I could bring up, but it's kind
Please
of
do.
more a writer's look into this movie.
Please do. You are the writer.
Thematically, I felt this was a story about change. Mostly, like, the setting of changing from silent pictures to talkies, and Gene Kelly's character having to change to fit the new Hollywood. Some people, the villain of the movie Lita, refusing to change and just sort of take that kind of thing into it. And in that sense, I mean, this is going to sound weird, but in writing terms, you define an antagonist by someone whose ideals are very similar to the protagonist, but they go about it in a different way, and sometimes in the best cases, they end up changing the protagonist as well. So in that kind of sense, I mean, you could look at Debbie Reynolds' character as a kind of good antagonist, which I found kind of interesting.
A good antagonist. It's kind of an oxymoron.
I mean, not all antagonists are bad. They just force the protagonist to challenge certain things about themselves, and then they come out better for it.
See, I don't think that Lita refused to change. I think that she was just wholly incapable of it. Like, she tried.
She did try.
She really tried, and then she was just frustrated because it wasn't coming easily for her.
Yeah,
so I think that was when she was like, screw
whereas
this.
Whereas
I'm
the
gonna
others
sue.
were more persevering despite that. Like, I do believe if Lita had persevered a bit more, she could have got there.
Oh God, with that voice? Oof.
No, not with.
Yeah,
not with,
she could have been like voicing teddy bears on commercials or something.
Yeah, to go from being the biggest star in the world to doing that, I don't think Lita would have been very happy with that, Nolan, somehow. I think instead she wanted to take over the studio, which she tries and does.
Well, she just wanted to maintain any sort of fame that she could, I think.
She did, which is, it's understandable. I mean, it's sympathetic in a way when you look at it from that point of view, in that it's not necessarily Lita's, lack of wanting to change. It is the fact that she just mentally cannot. She just can't, because of her own talent doesn't work in this new form of entertainment. I'm sure she was a great expressive actress, right? Perfect for silent films, can't do anything else that requires in talking. And in that way, it is really sympathetic. It's kind of finding out that you're not as good as you thought you were.
Well, maybe she could be like Doug Jones and play like monsters for the rest of her life.
Again, I don't think she'd be happy with doing that. Imagine going from being the biggest star in the world to being the creature from the Black Lagoon. It doesn't work, Nolan. It doesn't work.
Well, that's the difference, I think. She was looking more for the fame, whereas the others were focusing more on their passion. So there's kind of that whole recognition angle with the theme of the movie as well.
That is a fact. I think recognition is a better word, maybe than change to use, because it is it's a recognition from Lita's perspective on the fact that she isn't as all-round talented as she thought she was, and it's a recognition that they have to try and change and make the best of the new situation for the rest of the characters. But I really like that point about the whole sort of change. I can definitely see where you're coming from, and it's nice to get...
Don't expect me to do a video essay on it. That's kind of just something I figured right now.
No, that's, look, it's a perfectly good, perfectly worthwhile point to think about. It's an idea I didn't really consider looking too deep in watching this movie. I sort of watch Singing in the Rain as a very as entertainment. I don't necessarily think about the kind of thematic qualities, the couple of little morals that might be in there.
That's my writer's curse, my friend. I'm thinking about that with every movie.
It's not a curse, though. That's a great way of thinking. It's I wish it.
Well, it is a great way of thinking, but I understand, because then it's hard to watch something for the pure entertainment value, because then you just start ripping it apart subconsciously. Like it's like a knee-jerk reaction of like, oh, they used that scheme instead of that scheme, or oh, that's interesting what they did with this character, instead of like just being like pretty, like
before I started writing books, I was like that.
Yeah, I think sometimes it is nice to be very sort of analytical, though. I feel when the movie
it's not necessarily a bad thing. Like, I try to see what I can learn from movies.
Yeah, exactly.
As opposed to like tearing them apart. Tearing them apart is just stupid.
When the movie calls for some analysis, it's great to do. When it's clearly produced for a main focus of entertainment, like Singing in the Rain is, maybe the sort of to be constantly thinking about analysis, maybe that is your writer's curse, but it's certainly not a bad thing to have in, say a more dramatic movie, or a more sort of interestingly characterized movie or made movie in terms of technicals.
I do know, I don't know how Rachel's going to feel about this, because I know certain musical theatre folk that hate this about Singing in the Rain, but it did inspire La La Land.
Okay, so La La Land, or as I like to refer to it as An American in Paris's sad stepsister. Like, I literally sat there watching the movie going, that's ours. That's ours. That's ours. That 8 count is ours. That color scheme is ours. And at the end, they do the dream sequence which is legitimately almost cut for cut the end of the movie of An American in Paris. They put her in a yellow dress. They dance on the side. Like, it is...
Is it more homage, though, or straight up stealing?
It's homage. Come on.
mean...
It's not stealing, is it?
It legitimately took an interviewer asking about the comparisons between An American in Paris and La La Land to then be like, oh no, we love the movie. This was a work of love. And I'm like, no, it wasn't. If it was, then you would have come out and been like, this was highly influenced by An American in Paris. Like, woof. But I will say La La Land.
Rachel's just dying
How do I put
right
this
now.
without enraging Scott Mance?
Without annoying other La La Land lovers, me, Brandon Hanna loves La La Land.
Oh dear God, yes he does. It was a musical that was well done, that I think would have been better served by hiring and employing people who do musical theater as a living.
You sound like me describing most book adaptations.
Right. Like, don't get me wrong, I'll stare at Ryan Gosling for 2.5 hours. I'm fine with that.
So
the man is beautiful, he can act, he can sing. Him as Seb was heartbreaking. I like Emma Stone. In everything else.
Okay.
I was just intrigued because Singing in the Rain apparently was a big influence for La La Land.
Singing in the Rain, yeah. Singing in the Rain was American in Paris a little bit more, but basically Gene Kelly. The overall theme for La La Land was, we love Gene Kelly. And anybody who's ever seen those movies is like, oh no, we know. We get it.
Is Gene Kelly still alive?
No.
Oh, he's dead. I wonder what he would have thought of La La Land.
I mean,
probably
I'm sure he would have been
Rachel
excited
said.
that... What?
Probably the same as what you said, Rachel.
I would hope so.
You and Gene Kelly could have a nice little bonding session over your mutual dislike of La La Land.
Oh my God. It's not a dislike. It's just I would have made tweaks.
Okay.
Like, it's a musical and she's supposed to dance, and Emma Stone, bless her heart, can't. Like,
yeah, okay.
Like,
okay.
she did
You're breaking
really
my heart
good.
Right now, but,
She did really well for her.
Ooh.
But I know 20 girls who could have nailed that role in every aspect of acting, dancing, and singing.
That's very fair. Look, that's very fair. You've got to go off your own knowledge and your own opinions, and no one's ever gonna, or no reasonable person's ever gonna hate you for that. And we certainly don't, because we love you, Rachel. Despite the fact that I've
just met you, and I already think you're pretty cool.
Aw, thanks, boo.
Guys, I think as we're about to wrap up this episode, is it episode 45? I forget. We're recording it a bit in advance. Don't hate us, guys.
What did we say last month? Math sucks.
Math does suck. It really does. Before we get into our wrap up, is there anything anybody else wants to say about Singing in the Rain just before we do?
I would definitely bang Gene Kelly.
Oh,
okay, that's a good place to finish. Let's finish there.
if you haven't seen it, watch it.
Yeah,
just
simple as that.
Enjoy it. If you need a pick me up, if you need something happy and beautiful in your life, just watch the movie. Simple as that, guys. Simple as that.
Did this get a theater adaptation afterwards, like on stage?
I know that I think that there are regionals that have tried. I do not believe it went to Broadway though.
Okay.
Okay. I also think that they'd be really scared of that roller skating scene.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Because, I mean, aside from the Little Mermaid using Heelys and Xanadu, like they don't really like you, and they don't really like using roller skates on stage.
I wouldn't like using roller skates anywhere. Roller skates are a really infantile form of transportation. Be skateboards or be nothing. I hate roller skates.
You are. You're a very, very bitter human being. Be
Roller
skateboards
skates
or be
are
nothing.
the celery of transportation.
What if people like celery?
What about entertainment? Hello, roller derby.
That's very true. She's got a point.
Skateboarder right here, so...
Don't
hate, everything's got wheels.
Guys, thank you very much for listening to this episode of It's a Wonderful Podcast. Rachel, it's been so nice having you on. I cannot wait to have you join us for 2 more episodes this month. They are going to be
so excited. This was so much fun.
They are going to be wonderful. Guys, yes, of course, thank you for listening. You can find the show on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, Stitcher, Castbox, Podbean, other places where you usually find podcast stuff. Just search It's a Wonderful Podcast. You'll find us. We are right smack bang in musical March right now, and we are loving it. You can find the show on Twitter at It's a Wonderful One. You can find me on Twitter at The Purple Don with a 3 instead of the E in the, because 3 is the magic number, or on Instagram at The Purple Don with no numbers or anything like that because Instagram likes me. Nolan, where can people find you?
They can find me at NolanDean27 on Twitter. They can find me on Instagram at The Life and Times of Nolan Dean. They can find me on YouTube at Nolan Dean as well. I've probably brought Stories as Lessons back by now, so go enjoy the latest video after, a 6-month hiatus. And you can also find me on Grindr and Tinder if you're in Scotland.
Wonderful. And yes, Rachel, once again, it has been so great having you on as our guest this week and for the other 2 episodes this month. And who knows in the future what will happen. I know we'd love to have you back all the damn time because you're so great. But where can everybody find you? Are you doing any schmo-downing stuff anytime soon?
I was gonna say, so on Twitter and Instagram, you can find me at RM Silvestrini. It'll probably just be easier to find my tag on when this gets posted on Twitter.
Yeah.
And I will be participating in the Schmodown this year.
Okay.
You will be able to find me on the free-for-all. I'm very excited to announce that. I will be competing in that. And you can check out my old match. It's Inky and the Brain versus Corruption. And I will be competing with Inky and the Brain again soon, sometime hopefully soon. And yeah, keep an eye out for that. Watch the Schmodown. Go to Patreon, support them. Give them all your money.
Wonderful. I remember being at the taping of your first match with Inky and the Brain and trying to mentally scream answers into your head. It was very
It would
fun.
have been much needed. It was much needed.
It was very
I get
fun.
it, Morgan. You've been to LA.
Oh, stop being so bitter all the time. This was a loving, sweet movie this week, yet you're still feeling all bitter.
I just want to go to LA too, okay?
Well,
Come visit. I have plenty of space to stay.
see,
Always
there you
welcome
go.
at my place.
There you go. The offer's there, Nolan. The offer is there.
Thank you.
Yes, I look forward to seeing more of you in the Schmodown. I look forward to seeing more of you in general. We spent a nice weekend in London together, and that was wonderful. And it's going to be... It's all great. It's all great. I think I've gone a bit too happy at the end of this show. I'm just smiling and using words, it's going to be great, and it's all great, and which is unusual. But yes, guys, thank you so much for listening to this episode of It's a Wonderful Podcast. Join us next week, where it's the big episode. It's the big episode. Me, Nolan, Ginny the Machine, and Brandon Hanna talking Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. Now that is going to be one that should not be missed.
I'm going to enjoy that.
I am
bloodbath.
I am fairly certain that episode is likely to go on for 3 hours. Let's just see what happens, shall we? It's going to be
I'll be bringing my Roald
perfect.
Dahl book collection with me.
You can do whatever you want. We'll still all hate you.
Story of my life.
Guys, once again for the 17th time, thank you for listening to this episode of It's a Wonderful Podcast on Singing in the Rain. Until next time, Nolan, see us out.
Life isn't about waiting for the storm to pass, it's about learning to dance in the rain.
Again with stupid Australian. Bye, guys.